dreckiges Lachen vergeht, wenn ihr euer eigenes Blut fließen seht. Die Waffengemeinschaft Germaniens steht, für einen Kommen ist es jetzt zu spät.
I've got one that can see.
Where there's thunder, there's lightning. John Nada. Okay, this is a video that I have wanted to do for a while and have struggled with, should I make it or should I not? But I think that it's sort of an educational opportunity here, especially when you hear some of the stories of some of the older guys or some of the guys that have had a little bit more relationship experience. You can kind of see the bullet that you're dodging or the things that you're kind of dealing with when you decide to go their way rather than your own. And to just jump right into it, a girl I had dated not that long ago. It's been a little while ago, but it's been fairly recent also. We met while I was in the process of going through basically not so much like a college course, but a kind of like a recertification to do another occupation. That was a several month endeavor. We actually met offline, and at first everything seemed okay. She seemed halfway normal, seemed like an all right person, and I think that they are an okay person. I'm not saying that they're evil incarnate or anything. But as time had went on, it was fairly clear to me that there were some issues there. And the more that I thought about it, the more that I came to realize that I think this person was suffering from what's known as borderline personality disorder. And if you've been in MGTOW any amount of time, you've probably heard of this, BPD. If you want a good example of what it's like to be with somebody that has BPD, look up the Joe Rogan Dave Foley interview. Because what you begin to deal with, and these are just some of the characteristics, but what I particularly saw with this person was compulsive behavior, hostility, impulsivity, irritability, risky behaviors, and self-destructive behaviors. A lot of times their mood would be one of being angry or upset. They admittedly dealt with anxiety constantly, general discontent, guilt. Loneliness was a big thing that they brought up. Mood swings or sadness. Those are just some of the examples, really, that and the ones I kind of brought up are really the ones that applied to her. And I began to see that I'm pretty sure that she had this because she would do very risky and kind of unstable things. When we first got together, she didn't really want to tell me how many guys she had been with because she was worried how I would view that. As a matter of fact, before we even met, she was, already kind of talking very sexually and sent me one or two kind of sexual in nature. They weren't full on out nudes, but they were kind of, on the verge of. And this is before we'd ever actually met in person. And then the first time that we actually went out on a date, and she ended up actually sleeping with me on the first date. She had a real sense of, fear of abandonment from me. She did the thing called splitting, the black and white thinking, where 1 minute you're the greatest thing ever, and then the next you're the worst person ever. They usually tend to have intense interpersonal relationships that are unstable, and she kind of was. She had a pretty decent job at the time, making pretty good money, and again, she would kind of be really, I guess, what's the word? Just really loose with her money. And so I say all that to say this, I'm just kind of setting up the kind of situation I was in, because she really early on really had these intense, I had never had a girl say that I was pretty, but she would just kind of almost in a creepy way, like just look into my eyes and say, "You're really pretty and I really like you." And just, I was like, oh man. Because honestly, at the time, I was not that into this girl, because I had read some MGTOW literature, and had some understanding of MGTOW. And so I never really developed feelings for her as strongly as she did. And as time went on, of course, the relationship continued to be rather physical, and she was, um, that just only intensified her feelings for me. But the time came where, it just became very tedious and very difficult to deal with her personality, and just, you're just constantly walking on eggshells, and nothing you say or do is right, and just the constant mood swings. And it was a very unfulfilling relationship for me, because I had to constantly watch what I said and did for fear of just setting off her anger, or setting off her anxiety. I mean, the littlest thing would set this girl off, and then she'd just shut down emotionally and just make things miserable for everybody. So eventually, I just kind of had enough of this, and we did eventually break up. And I can't prove it, but like, it wasn't long after we broke up that I was at the house one night around like 11:30 at night, and the doorbell rang. And I mean, I was standing, I had just walked into the room upstairs, and so I quickly walked out to the little, where you can look over and you can actually see outside the front door. And so whoever it was had to be pretty quick. Now, again, I don't know that it was her, but based off some of the stuff she told me from her past, I wouldn't be surprised if it were. So I'm trying to get all this in, because there's a lot of stuff that happened after this. So we did ended up breaking up with her, and of course she didn't handle that rejection very well, and had some choice words for me. But anyway, I was just done at that point. And so time went on. I was actually pretty fearful um, in the preliminary to breaking up with her, because a couple times she had said, whenever I kind of started to go that route, that she kind of just felt used. And so I was legitimately concerned about, a possible false rape accusation, or maybe even a Phil Hartman situation. And when we were intimate, she was constantly trying to get me to not use protection, and to just kind of be very liberal with the end result of the activity. So I don't know if she was trying to get pregnant or what. And she was just kind of like, "Oh, but if I do, I'm not going to burden you with it, and I make enough good enough money, I could take care of the kid." So this just gives you a picture of this person. So after the breakup, time goes on, and I don't really think a whole lot about it. And for whatever reason, um, I thought that it might be okay to talk to her again. But I was kind of concerned about that, because I didn't really want to get her all riled up again with things. But we did end up kind of getting back in touch 4 months later. And to kind of cut through all that, I went down back where I had moved from, in the city where she was at, and just kind of visited with her. And she actually took me out to lunch and all this. And then, still was, really attracted to me and all that. And so I left, and we kind of continued to talk. And so I thought, I mean, at that time, I didn't have a lot of the knowledge that I have now. And so it seemed like we might be going in the direction of dating again. And so that went on for a little while. And then the issue inevitably was is that I didn't live there. And that in order for her to take things seriously, I was going to have to live there. So we had the thing which I had mentioned in a previous video about how, and of course, given her history and psychologically and everything, I had become concerned about her one night, and hadn't heard from her, and the last time I had spoke to her, she was really upset, and so ended up contacting a friend of hers who was kind of familiar with me, and then that whole fallout from that. Well, she got over that, and eventually I just decided that I was just going to go. You know what? We need to. This isn't. We can't work this out verbally, so I guess I'm going to have to go down there and visit her. And I did, and she just kind of blew me off. Once I got down there, I got to spend like 2 hours with her in bed before she went to work, and we didn't really say a whole lot to one another. And in the process of all that, I just was letting her know that I had a loaded gun on me because I carry, I have the ability to carry a weapon, and so I was just letting her know that because she didn't live in the greatest part of town to start with, and somehow she conflated that with me saying that because her dog had been barking at me, because I'd never actually seen her dog. And she asked me if I was afraid of the dog, and she conflated that with me saying no because I had a gun and was going to shoot the dog if it did anything. So after all that happened, like, we had this conversation on the phone once I got back because as I was leaving out of town, we were supposed to get lunch, and she kind of blew me off from that. So I had these flowers I'd gotten her just as a nice gesture, and I just left them on her doorstep. And so she calls me up as I'm on my way out of town to express, I feel bad about things and I need to come see you. And then the next day we have this conversation where she brings up the dog thing and so just all this stuff. And I can just tell that really something had happened that just totally ruined her day or whatever. And so now that was all being projected onto me. So fast forward from that, I just decided it's time to just break contact with this person and go on about life. So 3 months goes by, we don't talk or anything. I mean, basically what happened is I stopped making the effort. I stopped being the one to call and text and carry on. And what I did was I wrote her a letter because for whatever reason, right or wrong, it's so difficult for me to just tell people to fuck off, male or female. Like if there's any aught or any bad blood between me and somebody else, I always want to at least try to make it right. Whether we end up friends out of it or not is irrelevant. It's hard for me to let people go, and it's hard for me to just say fuck somebody. So I wrote her a letter just kind of apologizing for some stuff that, I did hurt her feelings and all that, but to me it was more important to have peace with this person. So I didn't really mind, apologizing to some extent for some things. And so I send it, and then like a week later, I end up back down there, and the stuff's just really bothered me. And finally, I'm like, this is just childish. I'll get out. So I just ended up going by her apartment, and in the process, she had gotten the letter like 2 or 3 days later before that. In the process, I guess I inadvertently meet her new boyfriend. And it actually turned out okay. It wasn't like a huge deal or anything, and I kind of talked things out with her. And he seemed all right with me. And given the nature of my job, it wasn't like a threatening thing or anything like that. I found out what he did for a living, and he's like a butcher or something, which in comparison to what I do is kind of like she knew that I knew that she had dated down. And I could kind of tell that she wasn't like exactly happy with this guy, but that was just kind of who she was with for now. And I'm kind of just looking at the video here, and I don't have enough time to finish the entirety of the story, so I'm going to have to do this in a part 2. But basically, she's kind of standing there, and he's standing there, and we're all talking, and we're making our amends and everything, but she's giving me the I'd still fuck you look the whole time. And this guy, not to bash somebody else, but he really just was average in every way. He looked kind of like your typical cuck, just average in every conceivable way. And I think she kind of had this realization that Like she had not actually, she had dated down rather than up. Since the video is kind of running low on time, I'll do the continuation in part 2. Go ahead and upload part 1, and then I'll do the continuation of part 2. So just stay tuned for that, because there's a couple other parts of it that I think are interesting.